Hello everyone, it's Teferi07. Today I brewed new 4-color Omnath list and immediately got the trophy with it in first try. So this is another 4-color pile using Up the Beanstalk for card advantage. So let's see why is this one different than the others and what's going on. So 2-3 weeks ago on the Wilds of Eldraine release, I brewed Beam to the Light deck that used Bring to Light with a great synergy with Up the Beanstalk to get another 5-drop, a lot of one-offs in the deck, a lot of targets. There were like Time Warps, Supreme Verdicts, stuff like that. Obviously, Solitudes, Furies, and other stuff. And yes, so at that point, everybody played Ring and Beanstalk in a deck. My idea was to not play the Ring, but to play because it didn't playing both Beanstalk and the Ring in the same deck did not give you enough space to put solutions into the deck for the problematic matchups. And I immediately said that I think long term the Beam to Light strategy could be slightly better. And the video was really popular. Soon after, somebody did good in preliminary, and the strategy they had a different list than mine, but after that strategy became very popular on MTGO. So I really wanted, since then, a lot of stuff has changed and the counterspell has become much better. Back then, everybody was still playing the Lighted Halfling, and the Force of Negation counterspell was kind of mediocre against those decks, but now counterspell is like really good, helps you get rid of their most relevant spells and just have a bit of control into the game. And counterspell doesn't work that good with the Ring because often you have to tap out 4 mana to play the Ring. It's very difficult to get it going with it. So in this build, we are trying to utilize the counterspell and you try to utilize a Beanstalk to be maximally effective here. So once you have the Beanstalk on the field, that should really guarantee you winning the game against decks that can't get rid of it. So that is the point. So I'd rather have a Beanstalk being fully optimized in a build like this than having multiple card advantage spells that doesn't give me solutions for problematic matchups. So here, Counterspell is that solution. In my previous version using Bring to Light was that solution, also finding you those one-offs and the one-offs in the main, one-offs in the sideboard. You had a lot of options. Now, Counterspell in the main, Force of Negation in main. So after trying to put Counterspell into the Bring to Light deck, problem became that I was too low on red spells for Fury, then I had to trim some Furies, then when I trim some Furies, my other 5-drops become worse because I don't have that much free elementals in the beginning to support having like 5-drops in a deck and having to wait turn 5 to cast them. So I had to switch and try to build things differently. So then after big experience with my Zoo Beans decks and how well Scion performed in that decks, I decided to use it in this 4-color pile because most of you know that Scion of Draco synergizes greatly with Omnath. Omnath is 4-color creature and Scion gives him a lot of abilities, most important being like Hexproof, but also he has like First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and he becomes very scary once the Scion is on the field and very hard to get rid of. I added some Loriens and the Teferis to the build so I can support the Force of Negation in the main side and of some subtleties. So that's it. And yeah, okay, other than that, it's some standard stuff. On the sideboard, a lot of hate. Another Force of Negation, another Veto, Chalice of the Void, Unmoored Ego to still have another tool to fight those combo decks. And like Throne also, so Endurance there for Graveyard Hate, Force of Vigor, both Sages, Artifact Enchantment Hate, and that's it. So let's go to the league and see how it went. Okay, this was match 1. Almost a perfect league. I only lost 1 game in the trophy match. Okay, so I'll have to turn off the sound from MTGO. So opponent started off with Ragavan, and you know how good is this deck into the these blue-red Murktide decks. So opponent goes for Island, plays the Ledger Shredder. I get my Zagoth Triome, get my Sacred Foundry, and really wanted to resolve the Wrenn and Six here. Once I resolve the Wrenn and Six, I'm sure I'm going to have enough lands for the rest of the game, and that is the first thing I want to do here. So, opponent then casts Dragon Rage Channeler. Their hand wasn't very good, and I just was able to ping the Channeler with Wrenn and Six like a free kill, cast Prismatic Ending, try to kill the Shredder. Opponent has Counterspell. I didn't want to double spell on my turn, so I keep the Leyline Binding for their turn. Wait until end of turn to see if they'll cast anything else like Murktide or whatever. They don't do it, end of turn I go for Ledger Shredder, and my opponent was obviously traumatized already from these 4-color piles and they concede entire match. That was it. So let's check out game 2. Match 2, sorry. This match 1 already finished. Okay, so in match 2, I started first with a very good hand, 2 Omnaths, Beanstalk, Teferi, Omnath, so it doesn't get much better than that. And also starting first, if you're wondering why the mana base is a bit strange in this build, it's because I have a Scion of Draco in this deck, and Scion of Draco requires you to play a specific mana base where your Triomes should probably all have black in their among their mana colors. So this way, you don't have to play like Sacred Triome and don't have to play like Overgrown Tomb to support the Scion, but you can just get your Triome early and then focus on finding another non-black lands that are relevant for your situation. So what I did here with the mana base is both Xander's Lounge and Savai Triome are not ideal for this mana base because Windswept Heath misses the Xanders and Misty Rainforest misses the Savai Triome, so neither of these land is perfect for a build like this. But okay, so neither of these lands is perfect. And if you play just one of these, and then I think you're definitely going to run into some problems, and that's why I decided to play both. Okay, so in this situation here, I was able to cast my Teferi, I had Beanstalk on the field, and opponents tried to go for another questing beast, but I had now a Solitude pitch to get rid of the second beast, and with the Beanstalk on the field, the Teferi on a 5, and getting rid of second beast, I pretty much now was in control of the game. I go for Omnath first. Gain some life, cast Scion, draw a card, bounce a Beanstalk with Teferi, and recast the Beans, drawing bunch of cards in the meantime. And yeah, that was it. Opponent concedes. Let's check out game 2. Okay, so let's check out my sideboarding plan for this matchup. 2 Wrens went out, 2 Scions went out, 2 Lóriens went out for the Boseijus, and that's it. Yeah, so just put some hate in, like Almordigo, Dovin's Vetoes, and all the counterspells I have on the side. Yeah, okay, so I was keeping my fetches here, so I have options to go for the basics in case they go for the Blood Moon, and I can also, it's important for them to not tap my land and try to resolve their spell that way. So I was just keeping my fetches, pretty happy with it, cast the island, and pass the turn holding a double counter, so Counterspell plus Doin Veto holding now. Still didn't want to cast my Teferi, it was too risky, trying to resolve it. Opponent also passing. We are waiting for a big turn when we'll try to fight either my opponent's trying to resolve the Rhino or me trying to resolve the Teferi, whatever comes first. Okay, so opponent goes for ice on my Sacred Foundry. I draw Unmoored Ego, but I don't have untapped Black Source, so I can't go for it this turn. And I really don't want to also, I just want to hold my counterspells still. Yeah. So now I tap my land to get the full domain so I can use my binding next turn. This turn I got to take the damage because I have to take the damage because I have to hold my mana. And now I go for a Teferi, try to resolve it. They try to force, I go counterspell, they try to dispute, and then I go for a Doin's Veto on the force. But they have another Force of Negation, so double force plus dispute help them resolve, help them counter my Teferi, but I was still holding a Force of Negation for their turn. And they didn't have another Rhino spell, but they did have a Lórien, so I definitely wanted to force that. And now on my turn, I had a bunch of mana and Omnath in hand. I top deck Chalice of the Void. I guess they didn't have. I think they didn't have Rhinos at this point in their hand, but still Chalice was pretty good in this situation, preventing them from top decking. And yeah, so I had another Solitude, which was pretty good because they had a Fury for my Omnath immediately. Yeah. So I wanted to find a basic in case they had their um, in case they have Blood Moon. So I did find planes here, and I was able to get the Solitude on the field to maybe try to gain some life. Opponent had Force to kill both Chalice and my binding, but I top deck Teferi into Omnath, into binding. Yeah, so obviously this deck can have those type of crazy draws when each card replaces itself. It's not that hard to top deck crazy like this. And yeah, so now again in a very good situation, Omnath on the field, casting Armored Ego, exiling their Crashing Footfalls, and holding the Leyline Binding for their subtlety. Subtlety was like pretty good in this situation. It's a 2-turn clock, but I had that binding to immediately remove it. Yeah, so now they had Rhinos on suspend. They have Chalice, but they can't. I exiled all the Rhinos, so no Rhinos for opponent, just Chalice agent. And yes, so now I get Fury from the top, and those Rhinos are not going to help. Yeah, I went for the Omnath attack, put my opponent on 9. This means lethal for the next turn. Opponent casts a Lórien, but it's too late. They didn't find a solution, and that is the game. Okay, so that is the match against Rhinos. So let's now go to the match 3. In the match 3, playing second, keeping mediocre hand, Beanstalk, Solitude, and Lórien. Of course, every Beanstalk hand can become crazy pretty quickly. Opponent was playing Blackburn, And they were like really aggressive in this game one. So started off with the Chancellor, Okiba Reckoner, turn to Sovereign Bite, and I'm already on 10 life. My turn 2. That is like pretty crazy. And I cast Up the Beanstalk and don't get much here. Didn't have much, just a Fury, Solitude. I really need either white or a red card to start doing something. And yeah, I get the Binding, which was really good to help me get rid of their creature. I could like pitch cast Omnath obviously, but I really wanted to hold Omnath in my hand, try to resolve it and start gaining life with it. That was my way to the victory here. So I cycled the Lórien to get the basics, so I don't need to risk anything. And now I was holding a counterspell on their turn, and on my turn I had Omnath plus fetch. So I was prepared here to counter whatever they play. And yeah, of course, went for Omnath on my turn, put fetch on the field, gain 4 life, and that's pretty much uh, game over now for the opponent, since they don't have removal. And even if they have removal, I'll go like Solitude my Omnath in response, gain 4 more life, and fetch on their turn 2. So that's pretty much game over. So yeah, okay, that was game 1. Let's check out the game 2. Opponent still had like a lot of cards in hand, but obviously didn't have enough mana to cast it all. So that was it. I started with a decent hand. I had Fury here. Okay, let's check out how I've sideboarded. Actually, I failed with the sideboarding here. I sideboarded out my Scions of Draco, but that was a mistake because they play Sleeper Agent. And yeah, so basically Scion is so good with Sleeper Agent because it gives Sleeper Agent lifelink. It's a black creature. So my opponent plays Sleeper Agent, I play my Scion of Draco, give my Sleeper Agent lifelink, and instead of losing life to Sleeper Agent, my Sleeper Agent becomes my victory. Yeah, so Scion can be pretty brutal against them. In this matchup, it was definitely a mistake to board it out, but I didn't think about that right away. Yeah, this is what happened. Yeah, like opponent played Sleeper Agent, and now it is for me. It could be possible to untap, play the Scion Draco, gain 3 life, which would be just brutal. This way, I had to pitch cast my Fury to get rid of it. Still, it was like okay for me, not a big problem. Opponent goes for Witherbloom command here. My only blue card is Omnath, and I definitely don't want to pitch that to force, so I just let everything happen. Bounce their creature, and yeah. Now I was hoping to find more lands to be able to cast my Omnath and start gaining life as same as last game. I thought like I was sure at this point my opponent has like 1 energy. I didn't notice they have 2, so I misplayed here. I went for Gaunt Imaginations, but didn't see they can sack it in response. So this was a fail. I should have like exiled Okiba Reckoner, and I played Chalice on 1. Chalice on 1 is better against regular burn, but it's okay against this version also has a lot of 1-drops, so can be good here. Still, I was holding a Force of Negation for their turn. Didn't really want to pitch cast Force and ditch the Omnath, but I would if I would be forced. And again now I cast my Omnath and gain some life. With Teferi, this means I'm guaranteed to be able to fetch in their upkeep too. So this means I will gain 3 more life. Yeah. So this was a pretty good situation for me. I still had a Chalice of the Void and also even a Solitude here to make things even harder for the opponent. So I start attacking with Omnath, bouncing my Solitude back to hand. Opponent finds a way to destroy my Chalice of the Void, plays Hopeless Nightmare, putting me on 2 life. If necessary, I am able to like pitch cast Solitude and gain more life to prevent myself from dying, but again I find a fetch here and again gain life with Omnath, and now at this point it was game over for the opponent, and that's it against Blackburn. Okay, so let's check out match 4. All very quick, clean games. This time I kept one lander with the Lórien, and I think I was playing against the Black Coffers. I started second, find another land, and I still had the Lóriens. Actually, I'm not sure if it was the Coffers or a scam. I forgot. Okay, let's see. Opponent started with the Totsis, taking my Counterspell. I had a bunch of good cards in hand, but definitely need mana to be able to cast them. I get the Beanstalk from the top of my deck, yeah, which was like really good top deck concerning my hand at the moment. Yeah, okay, opponent. Okay, so now I remember. Opponent was playing Golgari mid-range control. I think this is Brew from Aspiring Spike channel. Yeah, they were playing Golgari Ring. And yeah, so they have Bowmasters in their deck. They have Sheldred, which is definitely can be problem against my Beanstalk. But I don't play Ring, so it's just my Beanstalk. And I had multiple tools to like get rid of their creatures. So I think this feels like a good matchup. Opponent attacked me with Bowmasters. I wanted to cast a Fury to kill Bowmaster and not to use the Solitude. This way I get to kill both Orc token and the Bowmaster himself. Okay, opponent plays the Demolition Field, but I had plenty of lands, so I wasn't in a big problem. Okay, now I go for it. I pitch cast the Fury first, like letting them get Bowmaster trigger, then killing a Bowmaster, and now I can cast Omnath if I want, or Teferi. I decide to go with Teferi, plus him, and just play my Hallowed Fountain and hold like Omnath plus a Solitude for next turn, which is obviously can be very strong. Opponent doesn't have the ring on their turn, but they go for a Grist Halfling instead. So I go for Omnath, but draw other cards in meantime. So I go for a second Beanstalk and just binding their Grist. If I played my land untapped, I could have gone for a Scion 2, but it was okay. So opponent now has the ring, but now it doesn't matter anymore because I have another binding in hand plus Prismatic Ending. Yeah, so I had multiple options here, but I decided to go for the Prismatic Ending and just, yeah. Opponent then uses more of their Demolition Field. I find last basic from my deck, gaining more life in process with Omnath. Yeah, they had removal there, but at this point there's like really no chance for my opponent winning against the 2 Beanstalks. And soon after, on my turn, I resolve a bunch of Scions. I had all 4 of them, I think. Yeah. I play my Wrenn and Six, and my opponent concedes. Yeah, that was the game. So let's check out the game 2. Okay, in the game 2, I had double Lórien, so I'm safe from their Totsis. I can still go like Foundry, find Pool, and then go turn to Beanstalk. That is, Beanstalk is like very good against them. They have some solutions for it, but not a lot of them. Okay, opponent doesn't do much, just passes the turn. I find my Beanstalk as planned, sorry, Breeding Pool as planned, then I play the Breeding Pool and play my Beanstalk, resolve it. Opponent gets Bowmasters in response, but I immediately kill it with Solitude. And yeah, okay, so let's see what else happened. Now I had my Wrenn and Six. Opponent decides to just pressure me with the knight. Okay, I just decide to go for the binding, exile the Dread Knight, draw a card. So next turn I can go a Wrenn and Six and hold the counterspell. I also have a binding. So I start off with the binding, exiling the ring, casting Fury, drawing another card, playing my tap land, and pass the turn holding the counterspell. Even if my opponent, yeah, they decide to kill both of my lands. So I wasn't able to go Omnath, fetch, whatever, but I was able to go for the Omnath. So I really wanted to resolve one of my Omnaths because before they destroy more of my lands. They still had one demolition field in the play. Yes, so I go for it. I find my steam vents and draw the beanstalk from the Omnath trigger. Yeah, they go for the Boseiju, giving me another red source. I was really happy with this. And they get their ring, but it doesn't matter much. I think like 2 beanstalks in most of games I had so far, 2 beanstalks always beat the ring, and they don't really have much solutions for my beanstalk, and I have plenty for their ring. Okay, so I go for the Wrenn and Six, get my fetch back, get the Omnath triggers, go for another beanstalk, and yeah, just kind of pitch cast Fury into nothing just to get another draws, and then go for the Teferi. And I had option to play the Scion, draw 2 more cards, but I decided to hold the Subtlety and the Counterspell. Yeah, so I went for the Counterspell, obviously, for the ring, and they played their Dread Knight, but yeah, this was now game over at this point. I get another land back, do more Omnath triggers, shuffle my graveyard into library before fetching for a Triome, and cast the Scion, gets two more cards, and make my Omnath Hexproof, Trample, Vigilance, First Strike. Really scary creature. Opponent goes for another ring. But yeah, so they just don't have a much chance here. I have like too much stuff going on for them to recover here. So I pass the turn holding the Subtlety. They draw 2 more cards, and they really needed something strong in this situation, like Damnation, something like that, or another ring. They didn't get it, and they concede the game. That was it. Okay, so let's now check the last match, the trophy match. Match 5. Okay, in the match 5 I was playing second and had a one-lander with the Lórien. This can be a bit risky against a Counterspell deck. In this situation I had multiple options. I could go like Sacred Foundry, fetch Breeding Pool, play the Beanstalk. But I had two Scion of Dracos in my hand and I decided to go for a Zagoth Triome on turn 1, and this way I can go turn 2 into find an island and finish off my domain with another Triome. Or if I top deck a land, I could immediately play the Beanstalk, which is exactly what happened. So I first played the Beanstalk, and after that I played my Scions to get maximum value from the Beanstalks. I find the island and just go for the Scion, drawing a card here. It's a very serious threat for the opponent, very hard to deal with. And I decide not to play my second Scion, but to hold the Counterspell, because I just had no idea what is my opponent playing. They went Bolt, Snap, Bolt, but I had Counterspell for the Snap, so my Scion survived. And yeah, they concede. They just didn't have solution for the Scion, and they weren't able to fight card draw from the Beanstalk, and that was the game. Let's check out game 2. Only game I lost in this entire league. I kept a pretty decent hand, Counterspell, Binding, Subtlety, drawing Force of Negation for the turn. It was a pretty cool game, a lot of fighting, fair fighting, and yeah, we both had pretty good hands, and it was a cool game. I play my island at this point, just holding the Counterspell. So I play the fetch. I play the fetch. This way I can go for the Temple Garden if needed to cast my both Binding and Counterspell. I go for Counterspell on Baral, but I wasn't sure like if they're combo deck at this point or something. But Baral was just a wizard for their Flame of Fener. Maybe this wasn't really necessary. They just had Remand, and maybe like Force of Negation wasn't really necessary. I didn't even see it was really a Remand. I thought I didn't really think about it good enough. So maybe made some bad decisions in this game which caused the defeat. Also, I had no idea what is my opponent playing. And yeah, they had Narset here. So Subtlety is pretty good at this point. If I resolve it, they can't really kill it because it has Hexproof from the Scion, which is then very cool because it's a free block for the Ragavan. Okay, and they connect with Ragavan, not exiling anything, but now I attack again with Scion, this time holding both Subtlety and Binding. They knew I had Subtlety in hand right now, but they had something for it. Yeah, another Remand. I I played Teferi on my own and puts a Scion on the field, but opponent plays the Snapcaster just to get the Wizard on the field, and now they had a Flame of Fener, drawing them 2 cards, killing my Scion, and also killing my Teferi with the attacks. This was like pretty good play for the opponent, and this definitely changed the game, and now my opponent finds a second Flame of Fener. I try to force it, but they have another Snapcaster for the dispute, and yeah, that was basically it. I wasn't able to recover from this situation. Also, like my endurance did nothing. Yeah, I could have played this better. So let's check out the game 3. last match of the league for the trophy, and I was playing first against a mid-range deck. I think I'm like really favored to win this, especially on the play with a hand like this where I can go like turn 2 Beanstalk. It's very hard for them to deal with this. So I go for the Beanstalk, immediately resolve it, and that's like immediately huge problem for opponent. They go for Baral. I have turn 3 Teferi bounce Baral. Lot of you players know how annoying is this. And yeah, they went for Narset. That is the scariest spell in their deck for me. So I had to use my Force of Negation on my turn. Then go Wrenn and Six, find a second Beanstalk, and yeah. So now it's basically GG. I go for Omnath, draw a card, play a fetch, get bunch of mana, play Leyline Binding, draw 2 cards, and that's the game. Opponent concedes. Yeah, this deck was like dominated this entire league. No player really had a chance to win even a game, or not to mention a match. I don't know, maybe like few games were like kind of close, but not really. And I'm really like fascinated just how easy did this league go, and it's just very favored against Scam, very favored against Murktide, and most of other creature-based decks. And so I think a Scion is really worth it in a 4-color pile like this one. Also, I think Counterspell is really good at the moment, really powerful card which helps you deal with various threats currently played in Modern. I think it's a great tool in a deck like this. And Scion also is just amazing Beanstalk payoff. 2 mana for this 4/4 flyer, which then supports Omnath, make him like crazy good, hard to kill. It's also nice with the subtlety from the side. Yeah, and that's it. It's like a mini lord for your elementals, and that's it. So I really like having this much of spells that can trigger the Beanstalk, but most of them you can play like for very low mana. Scion is 2, Binding is 1, all elementals are free, of course. Prismatic Ending is also a spell you can cast for 1 mana, but when you need a card draw, you can cast it for 5. And Lórien Revealed also fits great with the force and subtlety on the side. And that's it. That's the entire league. I hope you liked the gameplay video. I hope you liked the deck. I think like Scion was really good, and whenever I draw it, I was like really happy with it. And it's a really a good threat opponent have to deal with, and it helps the deck overcome the problem it has. Like it's very slow into finishing, and Scion just is very good in finishing the game. And I think when you have Scion in, you don't have to play Endurance to not to deck yourself, because it's very easy to finish with the multiple Scions and other creatures once you establish the board control. There is that one force. I think I'm very happy with one force in the main, one in the side, like a fifth counter spell, just facilitating my counter plan in the main, which gets even better after side with Doin's Veto, another force, and 2 Armored Eagles to deal with those type of matchups. And that's it. Yeah. Okay. So everything else is regular 4-colored pile stuff. And I talked about mana base. I have both Savai and Xander here. It's to support my Scion of Draco. Because the fetches are not ideal. Obviously, Heat missing the Xander and Misty missing the Savai makes both of these triomes not ideal, and having Lórien Triome instead is also not good enough, because then it requires you to play the Overgrown Tomb, which is also not great in deck. So to address this problem with the mana base, I decided to go for the 3 Triomes, and I think this works very well. I'm very happy with it, and it makes getting domain much easier in deck playing a Scion, which often like requires you to have access to the domain to play this smoothly. And that's it. Okay, thank you for watching. Just a friendly reminder to click like, click subscribe, comment in the video. If you have playtested the Scion, I'm interested to see your what are your impressions with this card in the 4-color Omnath pile. I'm very happy with it. And that's it for today. Again, thanks for watching and goodbye.